When heaven goes quiet, history is being written. Hidden scrolls of the Bible.
Fire fell from heaven. The sky tore open. An altar exploded into flame. A nation fell to its knees. The Lord, He is God. Elijah stood there, unshaken, victorious, certain. But that same night, he ran, not from prophets, not from armies, from fear. How does a man who calls down fire collapse in a cave? That's the story. Stay with me, because the fire was loud, but the whisper changed everything. Fire. It is the one thing we all pray for, isn't it? We want the lightning to strike the altar when the world is watching. We want the smoke to billow high enough for our enemies to see it from the horizon. We want the proof. We live in a world that worships the spectacle, the viral moment, the public victory, the mountaintop. On Mount Carmel, the proof was undeniable. I want you to close your eyes and imagine the atmosphere that day. The air was thick with heat and the smell of ancient dust. For 3 years, the sky had been like brass, not a drop of rain, not a whisper of a cloud. The nation was starving. The king was desperate, and 450 prophets of Baal were screaming, cutting themselves, begging a silent God to answer. But then there was Elijah, one man, one altar built from 12 broken stones. He didn't just pray for fire, he made it impossible for fire to burn. He poured barrel after barrel of water over the wood until the trenches were overflowing. He raised the stakes until only a miracle could save him. And then it happened. The sky didn't just open, it tore. A massive pillar of flame descended, hitting the altar with the force of a falling star. It didn't just burn the wood. It consumed the stones, the dust, and licked up every drop of water in the trenches. In that moment, Elijah was the most powerful man on earth. He was unshaken. He was a hero. He stood there, silhouetted against the dying embers of a miracle, while a whole nation fell on their faces crying out, "The Lord, He is God." This was his peak. This was the moment every leader dreams of. But here is the secret about fire. It consumes everything it touches. And while the altar was burning, Elijah was burning out. Success has a strange way of masking exhaustion. You can be winning on the outside while you are crumbling on the inside. Elijah had just faced down a nation. He had executed the false prophets. He had outrun the king's chariot in a supernatural display of strength. He was operating on pure adrenaline and holy fire. But then, the sun went down. The adrenaline began to drain, and a message arrived. It wasn't a message of congratulations. It wasn't a thank you note from the king. It was a cold, sharp threat from Queen Jezebel. 7 words that changed everything. By this time tomorrow, you will be dead. Wait a minute. This is the man who just called down fire from heaven. This is the man who stood alone against 450 armed men. Why is he afraid now? Why did he run? He ran because courage is not a bottomless well. It is a battery. And Elijah's battery was at 0%. He didn't run because he was a coward. He ran because he was empty. He ran until the cheering voices of the crowd were replaced by the sound of his own heavy, ragged breathing. He ran into the wilderness, the place where there are no witnesses. He found a lone juniper tree, the only shade in a landscape of burning sand, and he collapsed. This is the public victory, private collapse that so many of us know all too well. You've been the strong one for your family. You've been the rock at your job. You've held it all together while everyone else fell apart. And now, you're under the tree. Listen to his words. They are shocking coming from a prophet. He looked up at the sky and said, I have had enough. Lord, just take my life. I am no better than my ancestors. That wasn't a lack of faith. That was the sound of a human being who had been strong for too long. He wasn't asking to die because he hated God. He was asking for rest because he couldn't carry the weight of being a hero anymore. How does the creator of the universe respond to a man who wants to quit? Does he lecture him? Does he remind him of the miracle he just performed? Does he call him a coward? No. God does something so much more profound. He lets him sleep. There is a deep, holy theology in a nap. Sometimes the most spiritual thing you can do is close your eyes and stop trying to save the world. While Elijah slept, God didn't prepare a sermon. He prepared a meal. He sent an angel to bake bread on hot stones and provide a jar of fresh water. Notice the gentleness here. The angel didn't wake him up to ask for a report. He didn't demand a prayer. He just touched him and said, Arise and eat. And Elijah ate, and then he went back to sleep. God allowed him to recover in cycles. Eat, sleep, repeat. If you are listening to this right now and you feel like a failure because you're tired, stop. Your exhaustion is not a sin. It is a signal. You are not a machine. You are a soul living in a frame made of dust. Elijah stayed under that tree until his soul began to catch up with his body. Only then did God give him the strength to walk again. He walked for 40 days and 40 nights, deeper into the wilderness, toward a mountain called Horeb. He wasn't walking toward another battle. He was walking toward a conversation. He found a cave, a dark, quiet hollow in the side of a mountain. He went inside and waited. He wasn't looking for fire this time. He was looking for a reason to keep going. Then the show began. Elijah stood at the mouth of the cave and a great and powerful wind tore into the mountains. It was so violent, it was shattering rocks into pieces. It was spectacular. It was loud. It was exactly the kind of power Elijah was used to. But the Bible says, God was not in the wind. Then came an earthquake. The very foundation of the mountain shook. The ground beneath Elijah's feet threatened to give way. It was terrifying and awe-inspiring. But God was not in the earthquake. Then came the fire. The sky turned orange. The heat returned, reminding him of Carmel. But God was not in the fire. Elijah was looking for the God of the spectacle, but God was trying to show him something else. After the fire, there was a sound. In the original Hebrew, it is called kol demama daka. It means the sound of sheer silence, a thin, small whisper. When Elijah heard it, he didn't cheer. He didn't raise his hands. He wrapped his face in his cloak. He was more intimidated by the whisper than he was by the fire. Why? Because you can hide in a crowd during a miracle, but you have to be intimate to hear a whisper. The whisper didn't tell him he was a failure. It didn't shame him for running. It gave him a new perspective. It told him he wasn't alone. It told him there were 7,000 others who hadn't bowed the knee. It gave him his next steps. Not a mission to save the world, but a mission to find a friend named Elisha. The fire proved that God was powerful, but the whisper proved that God was close. Maybe you've been looking for a big sign to fix your life. You're waiting for the big promotion, the big miracle, the loud breakthrough. But maybe God is standing right next to you in the dark of your cave, whispering. He is saying, I am here. I am not done with you. Your exhaustion doesn't disqualify you, it just makes you human. Elijah stepped out of that cave a different man. He wasn't the super prophet anymore. He was a man who knew how to listen. If you have been strong for too long, it's okay to go to the cave. It's okay to let the fire go out so you can finally hear the voice. If this story feels like it was written for your life today, if you are under your own juniper tree, I want you to know that the fire was loud, but the whisper is enough. Subscribe to this journey. Let's stop chasing the fire together, and let's start finding the quiet. Someone else needs to hear this whisper today. Share this with them, because sometimes the whisper is what saves us.